studio YouTube chain. So I will be presenting. Okay. I will be presenting a new subject about what is a designer in this sustainable construction realm, and how here in SUHO, which from the experience of the 10-star and previous experience accumulated in our career, we just set up and still working on a way to achieve better sustainability outcome for our clients in the construction. So, here we are. So this is about the role of designers, and having worked in the industry for years, it is really important to actually think about the position you take into a project, and what are the possibility and the limit of your role as a designer in construction. I have to say that the difference in between the role of designer in Europe and in here is quite different, and the connection in between builders and designers is quite different too. So I had to learn a lot coming in this country, but that was as it always be a really a great opportunity to improve and open my mind about many things. So this is about advocating a holistic approach, and to in the meantime work out how we can integrate more things into the design, because this dimension of sustainability in construction is bringing a lot of expertise in the field, and change completely the approach and the role of the designers, and I will be speaking about that today. So the objective of SUHO is to drive the Australian transition to a sustainable built environment, and it's not a small path, and we had the benefits of a lot of expertise in our office that helped us to put together some strategy about it. Being integrative in the design. So what I call integrative design is actually a design that it's actually taking on board a lot of aspects that used to be in the design before, like the construction aspect, the structure aspect, the aesthetical aspect, answering a request and a program from the client and things like that. But also a lot of dimension came into this design with the possibility to simulate through softwares, and to actually bring it into expertise to manage to achieve sustainability in the build and energy efficiency. So I will be speaking about how this set up a sort of a need for a collaborative approach to happen earlier in the project, and how throughout the different step of designing and taking the building to construction, we need to add some more technical and more strategy into what we are doing. So integrative design, it's a design that it's a bespoke design, but so it's answer a request from a client, but also from a site. So it's quite unique. Each design is quite unique in its answer, and but it's also speak a lot about a compact envelope. So there is a lot of social and political aspect of it into answering the need for densification, for example, and working with a space that is quite different than the average size of a home in Australia, which was 10 years ago like 214 square meters, which is huge. So I won't come back on that, because we speak in other webinars about what is the challenge about density and the size of the buildings, but it's about revisiting a new way to design space in a smaller surfaces. So it's integrate solar passive design, and this is a big basic things that we need to work with. I don't say basic but simple, I say like this is a base of it, and then we use a lot of this solar passive design to actually improve the rating on buildings, because there is a lot of aspects in solar passive design that are really important. So a sustainable designer has for me, need to have at least this background of solar passive design to be able to actually start to design things the right way. And it's also about energy production, about expertise in engineering, and it's also about smart envelope, and I will come back on that later, where it's there is a real thought and a real change in the way we actually build the wall and the roof and the way we think the envelope of the building. So to go back on the integrative design and the responsibility of designers, a first approach of the project happened during the contact with the first contact with the client, and where we set up the brief, hopefully because they came and decided to contract with us, and so there is a really important step there where sustainability need to have a really important role. And so if you come as a client to a sustainable designer, you have some ideas about what is sustainability. And as we know now, the idea that everyone's got about sustainability can be different and can affect different areas. So it's really important that you define with your new client what is their description and definition of the sustainability to be able to answer their requests, and maybe to go further and open their expectation to a new field of sustainability. So you need to clarify with the client what they're looking for in terms of targets into sustainability, whether it's energy efficiency, use of healthy materials, priority to short cycle production, and the quality of the air they will have inside of their building, the fact that the building can last for 3 generations. So there is a lot of possibility to develop there, and you also have as a business to have a good definition and a good approach of this definition of sustainability. So the more holistic it is, the better it is, but we know designing in this field for years that you at some point need to give some priority about what you want to achieve with that. So some clients come to us just for energy efficiency, which it's mainly driven by money, but also this idea that we have less effect on the grid of energy, but there is a lot more dimension that we can bring into the project, and the budget will actually force us to set up those priorities. So it's really important to refer to that. As a designer, it's good to also to have references and numbers that you can give to the client, so they actually realize what their decision impacting on their budget, how their decision impact on their budget, and on the impact on hers, like carbon footprint and so on. So it's really good to feed the client with this definition and this clarification of priority right from the beginning of the project, because when you will go forward in the project, you will always go back on this list of priority and will help you to make decision about it. So this is also, and that's the experience we had to the 10 star about revisiting new typology and thinking the space differently. So there is a new way of life coming with this decision of living sustainable, and some people understand that there is really a benefit into reducing the footprint and building differently, being a lot more efficient in the use of space. So for us, for example, when we propose a 10-star home where you've got 3D picture of it here, and the building is actually finished, you've got less to pay because you've got a smaller building, but you've got less warm and cool. So this is about conditioned area, and you've got also less to care about, less to worry about, less to clean, and more time to enjoy your life. So there is a decision in the design of space that a sustainable designer can push forward to be able to achieve this small footprint in creating transitional space, functional space, integrated storage, and living outdoors, creating a real connection in between internal areas and external areas, so you can actually extend the living area outside. And one point that I really wanted to just mention, because we work on the 10 star, I think our team is pretty clear about the fact that we don't want to compromise on design and architecture to be able to achieve sustainability, and there is no reason to do that. And whether you give some priority to the envelope and things like that, you may reduce the price in some fittings and so on. But the design by itself, the shape, the way you work the building, and because it's also an answer about passive design, is actually an act of aesthetical purpose and an architectural demonstration. So, and we're really happy with the result for the 10 star. So now, having this said, there is this integrative design, and this is a responsibility of the designer to go beyond what is a general aspect of design and architecture, and have this holistic approach that gives you the possibility to actually manage waste management on site, have a reflection about water management, about the electricity production. So one of the methods we use for that is, like, we've got a really schematic way to represent the project, and there is 3 main steps that happen in this process of schematic representation of the project. One is the analysis, like having a proper knowledge about what the clients can actually offer, and what is his profile. So you've got the budget and the need for the space, but you also have a family that has certain way of living, certain way of using energy and water, and you can work with them what can need to remain in their new home, and what can be actually how the house can actually improve their consumption by offering them possibility to reduce their impact. So that's the analysis of the situation, the land, the program, and the behavior of the owners. And then you've got a proposition, and so that's part of the design, and you can have a schematic representation of it, like you have here for a project that was off the grid that we designed in Gold Creek. And then you've got a simulation of this house, and so now we've got those tools where we can actually enter all the information about the house, the design, the size of the windows, but also the choice you made into devices and conditioning spaces, so you can actually simulate the future consumption of the house. And that's what is done in Australia with another software. So whether it's First Rate 5 or Accurate, you actually enter the design of the house and give a sort of sorry, I've got an echo here. So yes, you can offer. So you can model the design, the size of the opening, and the device internal and the internal device and everything. So you can actually have a visibility on where the house is setting on Australian standards, and also some information about the simulated temperature in the building. They say there is a lot of aspects that are not yet entered into the software. So. But I will come back on that later. We use also some other modeling software and some other design support to be able to achieve this target that we set up with the client at the beginning. So we come back on the schematic representation of each field. Like, for example, this one is just about water management and what the possibility could be for development of a house in terms of recycling, collecting, and so on. We've got some design builder software when we can simulate a lot of things in the building, the temperature, the comfort, the cross ventilation, and so on. And we can also, for example, have daylight analysis made, so we can actually have an idea, a visual idea that we can offer to the client and for our own research to simulate the comfort in the space related to windows. So our software now in design are offering possibility to create, most of them, a shadow analysis of the building, which will actually be a really, really useful tool to actually go for passive design. Now, this is about integrative design. I will speak now about how we actually can achieve that and pass on to the site. And one of the things that is quite obvious to me since the beginning of my career, and I've been working in 3 different countries, and that even highlight this a little bit more each time, is that we actually need to collaborate a lot along a project, because there is a lot of expertise involved. I see the designers as general doctors, so we actually bring a lot of information we are not specialists in and need to have this holistic approach. But one thing that may be difficult in this journey is to actually understand that we all speak different languages. When I say it's different languages, and that's why I refer to the Babel Tower, is that for example, our approach as a designer will be a representative approach. We will draw, we will give pictures, illustration of what we are achieving, so the client can actually project himself into what will be done, and the builders will have enough information to hopefully put things together. When in engineering, we'll have this approach of design, but maybe a bit less spatial and more in calculation and in validation. So there will be a bit more of a regulation aspect of it. And the specification is all about that, describing with words. When you arrive on site, it's pretty different. People are in action. There is a lot of verbal communication and what we call in French savoir-faire, so the ability to make things. And so people are a lot less in spending time looking at drawings and putting things in a writing on writing support, but they a lot into the verbal and the making and demonstration communication. So this is a responsibility of the designer to actually have a bit of an understanding and respect for this difference in communication, to be able to actually transmit and bring everyone together to collaborate as early as possible. When I say early as possible, the energy efficiency and sustainability in the design is bringing a lot of things together. So there is a real so that need to happen about ventilation, vapor control, insulation, material structure, and architecture. So you will find some of these fields, for example, in a general construction. But if those fields are not actually acknowledged and work out with the designers early in the project, they will actually, because they overlap each other's, go to a real huge contradiction, and then it will compromise the building efficiency. So this is really important to actually interact and bring everyone together early in the project. I mean by that, having a real discussion about the engineer early on, before they actually do their calculation about your intention on the building, and maybe to, if possible, have a pre-project setting so you can actually explain what you're looking for in terms of structure and how this structure will impact the envelope, for example. That's what happened with the thermal bridging, and it's actually often having this discussion early on when the work is not elaborate yet will give you the possibility to develop some really interesting solutions. So there is interaction in the building about structure, material, ventilation, energy production and consumption, and durability. For example, if you look at the ventilation and the vapor control, mainly on the building in Australia, we use this reflective wrap around the building, and this wrap is actually completely waterproof. When it's about ventilation, that could be nice to have this wrap doing the airtightness, but there is also some issue about vapor control and how the transfer and the difference of temperature will bring dew point in the wall and create potentially some water retention, if not mold growth. So with idea of having more energy efficient building come the real thought about airtightness and which kind of membrane we use, and there is a lot of dimension that hasn't been acknowledged in previous building that end up often with a lot of damage in the long term on the structure. So that's really important to actually work on the airtightness, the continuity of the airtight layers to avoid air infiltrations, and so on. So you need to face the choice of ventilation that you will put in the building in the meantime that you speak about the different layers and membrane you will use. This interaction happen also in between the structure and the insulation, where the choice of material are creating or not thermal breaching, for example, whether it's really conductive or not conductive material, or if you had some layers in between. If you choose to put the insulation inside, if you choose to put the insulation outside. So all these topics are interacting constantly. And you don't want to forget the architectural design, which bring a lot of this passive design aspect too. So it's that's really important to have this meeting with everyone and have this collaborative approach, so you can actually be proactive in the choice early on in the project and not deal with consequences. And in the middle of this all energy efficiency, and there is the detail. So for me, this is really the key of this whole holistic approach, is that if there is something you can communicate and work around the building on, is like you need to zoom back and forth, but the detail is actually having all this aspect in, and will be the opportunity to really speak on site about the way you build the walls, the construction, and what can be brought into the detail so it's actually working. Like, for example, and it's really important, again, I will come back on that, to actually understand the language on site and to have a lot of respect for the knowledge of the builders. We may have, first one thing is like, I would like to see more designers learning on site, because for example, when you arrive to design a detail, it's really important to understand well the logic of that. And I've been spending like, since the beginning of my career, I've been lucky. I've been following sites since the beginning of my career in 2007. I learned a lot from the builders and from the trades, and this say I still learn a lot, and we still like keep questioning details and adapt to the possibility we've got with the different materials, with the different suppliers, with the different knowledge of the builders, and without telling that in different countries we build differently. But that is really important that the designers actually have this experience on site, so they can bring it back into the drawings and into the details. And ends are clever, so people on site have this understanding of how things can put together, and there is also a question of managing the planning. Yeah. So to go back to the details, in the way we can actually draw these details, we've got the software, for example, that give you, for example, this visibility of a detail on a window, so you can see the whole construction. And we had this opportunity to actually prepare the details on site for a Sustainable House Day this year. So that gives you a bit of an opportunity to see how this will are working there. But what is important is like there is different subject we treat when we actually draw details that are related to energy efficiency, so and quality of construction. For example, we worked weather layer, so about making the building weatherproof through the cladding and the seals, but also we have this red line layer, that is the air tightness layer, that come directly from the red pen line that we use to achieve air tightness in buildings, and Jess is really good to speak about it. I recommend her webinars about air tightness. But we also analyze the continuity of insulation, like you can see in green, where you can try to find a real logic in between the insulation, where you put the insulation, and the way the thermal broken windows can be installed on site, and what you use, for example, as expanded foam to avoid thermal breaching. But we also have reflection about the mass and reflective layer, and also use ventilated or unventilated layer to create a dynamic in the wall. So that's what we call smart wall, and that is all the work that is put into the detail. This detail can become really, really technical, and we can actually at this stage, and thankfully it's really nice things that happen lately. At this stage, we can actually simulate also the behavior of this wall to actually simulate the wall into 5 years, 10 years behaviors. So we can actually have this real vision about what the building will be handling in the next years with different weather forecasts and with the time. So, for example, in SUHO we use WUFI to actually simulate the transfer of water in the wall and of moisture, and this way we can actually have a real understanding of what happened, whether we choose one type of construction or the other, by simulating with indoor and outdoor weather forecast. So that's really important. We can also simulate the transfer of temperature in the wall and really see the dew points. And I would say that at this stage we've got enough technology to actually model things, so we can take good decision about it. That involves a lot of study for sure, but it's really worth bringing the whole industry into that. First, because when we learn from one building and find some good solution, we can go forward with building more of them. And so, yes, so this aspect on site is really important to actually train the people about it, and to be sure that the builders is aware of what he's doing, and to keep communication remaining on site. So you have to make sure everyone is ready, to organize some meeting with the trades before entering on site, and make sure they're trained or aware of what they're doing, and they can find the right people to find the information for things to be solved on site. So whether it's a designer or someone else with an expertise, depend on the project. There is also a real role into having good specification set up that actually show the targets and give clear information about what we aim to do with the building and how we achieve it by using this or this material. So having really tight specification about the products will help. If not asking for a specific product, it is really important to give a maximum of descriptive information about permeability, reflection, weatherproofing, all sort of aspect that will actually act on the envelope. And one thing that we find out working on site is really important to actually have a good reading and a good communication and transmission of manual and specification from project 2. This is a meeting that happened with KESAB on how they were offering a toolbox to actually manage the cleanliness on site, and that's one of really important sustainable aspects that we care about, is actually how things are done on site, so you actually reduce the impact of the site himself on the environment. So I put this picture of a meeting because we had a few meetings with all the trades before site started, and I actually wish we had more meetings one-on-one with the trades before they enter on site, and I will be quite insisting on that happening in the next site, whether it's happened on site too, but it's really good that everyone has a bit of a reminder just before they start working on what their responsibility are in the building. And then the last things that come with, and is really important because it's also making everyone responsible for their work, is to actually control the building. And being that said, where, for example, we work with really airtight building to a passive house standard, or we want to achieve airtightness good enough to put HRV system, I think it's really important to test the building at the end of the first fix and the final result of it to be sure that we achieve the target we set up. Having a go around with a thermal camera at the end of the installation of insulation to be sure that nothing has been removed. Maybe after electricals and plumbing to be sure that nothing has been moved and tear away after some work. And we can use also a smoke pen and other techniques to actually find out where the leaks could be, if there is leaks that you want to sort out. So here is a photo of Jess again doing the airtight test in the 10 star, and that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them on this chat. This is really the opportunity for us to transmit the maximum of things about what we do here. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we use, I didn't put a lot of the detail here because it could be just a webinar presentation one by one, but yes, we had like what we call site control details done, so they were on A3, and we will go on site and actually speak about each of the detail with the builders before they do it. I have to say that it's really important to stay flexible. At some point, designers don't know everything, like I said, and we had a lot of exchange where actually speaking with the builders and them feeling really involved and responsible for the final result of the work. They propose some really creative and really useful solution on site too. So it's really important to come and have this detail and speak around it on site. So I've been spending at least 1 day a week on site, especially at this stage where we work on the first fix, and this is a really good way to exchange, learn, and make it efficient for future building. That could be really good. I mean, when a builder is trained, it's going a lot faster, and but I think it's really important to keep innovation on. So for advice and condensation control, Steve, well, there is some really good expert on site. We work with ClimaSure, that is a business that is offering and supplying membranes, for example, and the owners has really good expertise in terms of use of target for passive house standards and the use of WUFI. So if specifically you want to go for that, business like that can be done. We've got also a really designer approach, and Jess has a lot of expertise in airtightness, and so our airtightness QG is also offering some consulting on this aspect, but we are not supplying materials. So this is important to actually have a good contact with the suppliers, or to come to some expert that can offer this service, yes. Yes, so condensation is part of it in the new NCC, and there is also some aspect of thermal bridging that are coming into the NCC 2019. Now, all of these aspects are not compulsory, and the pass is not completely finished with that. So, but I think it's our responsibility when we go for this kind of building to be actually gain the maximum of knowledge and give the client the possibility to go the whole way with those aspects. Do you have any other questions? It was really good to be here and answering and explaining a bit of our work. Feel welcome to come back on the site and to go back on the different presentation webinars that are available on our YouTube, and go on the SUHO site where there is more information about the 10-star and some other project and possibility. We've got some partners that have worked with us, and business is offering a lot of service around these topics. Have a nice day, everyone.